12 strangers walked into a house with no Wi-Fi, no phones, no clocks, no idea what they'd actually signed up for. A production company called Grid Life Media promised them 30 days, one house, and $250,000 for whoever adapted best to life completely unplugged. Nobody asked who was judging that. Nobody asked what best even meant. And by day 11, that question would matter a whole lot more than anyone expected. Here's the setup. The house sat on 40 acres, stripped of every screen, charger, and router Grid Life could find. Contestants signed a waiver as thick as a phone book, agreeing to give up their devices, their contact with the outside world, and, buried in paragraph 42, in font size nobody bothered reading, the rule that leaving the property for any reason ends the experiment for everyone, not just the person who left. Cameras were bolted into every corner of the house. The crew running them was never seen. Just a producer's voice piped through a hallway speaker on day one, cheerfully reminding everyone to have fun out there, right before the front door locked with a sound nobody liked. The cast was, generously, a lot. There was Brent, a digital detox influencer with 400,000 followers who'd built his entire brand teaching people to put their phones down. Ironic, considering he tried to smuggle one in taped inside a protein bar box. There was Walter, a retired actuary who arrived with a laminated chore chart nobody asked for and immediately appointed himself House Council President. There was Deja, a competitive powerlifter who treated literally everything, including who got the last egg, as an event she could win. There was Priya, a barista with several theories about the cameras that started reasonable and did not stay that way. There was Corinne, a theater major who narrated her own life out loud whether anyone was listening or not. There was Mabel, 71 years old, sweet as pie, and, you'll want to remember this, disturbingly good at getting people to do exactly what she wanted. And there were 6 more, filling out the house, mostly quiet, mostly watching, which in hindsight was the smartest strategy in the building. Day 1 was a honeymoon. Everyone laughed about the silence. Everyone said things like, "This is actually kind of nice." By day 2, somebody realized there was nothing to do after 8 p.m. without a screen, and the whole house nearly lost its mind. Boredom, it turns out, is a monster all its own, and 12 strangers with nothing to distract them started distracting themselves with each other instead. Does that sound like a recipe for peace and harmony to you? It was not. By day 4, Walter's chore chart had quietly become law. He posted shifts on the fridge. He fined people and snacks for missing them. Nobody elected him. He just had a clipboard and the confidence of a man who'd never once lost an argument about spreadsheets. And somehow that was enough. Deja, unwilling to live under anyone's laminated rule, started her own competing system, Sunrise Fitness Trials, where whoever finished last ate breakfast last. 2 governments running in one house, both completely made up on the spot. Pause here and guess which one survives the week. Neither did. By day 6, the house had split into factions nobody signed up to join. Team Order, loyal to Walter's chart. Team Chaos, loyal to whoever complained about the chart loudest that day. A shadow economy sprang up almost overnight. Extra granola bars traded for laundry shifts traded for gossip. Gossip traded for basically anything at all. Priya started keeping a private log of camera anomalies that grew from 4 pages to 11. Corinne staged a one-woman play about the injustice of dish duty that 3 people actually cried at. And somebody, nobody would say who at first, kept disappearing out to the tool shed after dark. That shed became the house's favorite mystery. Theories flew fast. A hidden phone, obviously. A stash of contraband snacks, more likely. A tunnel, according to one very confident guest at 2 in the morning. It was actually a quiet man named Ezra, a former wilderness guide who barely spoke during the day and spent his nights building a battery-powered radio out of spare parts he'd found in the shed's junk bin. Not to cheat, he'd insist later, just to listen. Nobody believed the just to listen part. Not yet. Then came the trial. Somebody's secret snack stash got discovered. 6 granola bars, hoarded under a floorboard, traced straight back to Brent, of all people, the man who once posted a video titled, "Scarcity Mindset is a Choice." The house convened what they seriously, unironically called a tribunal. Walter presided with the clipboard like a gavel. Deja demanded a fitness-based sentencing. Corinne demanded the whole thing be reenacted as a courtroom drama first, and Mabel, sweetly, suggested banishment to the shed for one night. And somehow, everyone agreed that sounded perfectly fair. Brent spent the night out there, and that's when things actually started to go wrong. Because Brent wasn't alone in that shed. Ezra was already there, hunched over his little radio, and what he'd been picking up for 3 nights running wasn't music. It was static and long silences, and one repeated automated message on a local emergency frequency about Grid Life Media's studio lot being temporarily inactive pending restructuring. Restructuring. On day 11 of a 30-day contract, the two of them sat with that information overnight, and by morning, the house had a much bigger problem than granola bars. Here's the turn. When Ezra told the group what he'd heard, half of them didn't believe him until they noticed something they should have caught days earlier. Nobody had restocked the pantry in a week. The producer's voice that used to crackle through the hallway speaker every single morning hadn't said a word since day 8. And the confessional camera in the den had a red light that Priya, of all people, vindicated at last, 11 pages later, pointed out had been steady this whole time, not blinking, meaning it had never actually stopped recording. Grid Life Media hadn't paused the show for a technical issue. Grid Life Media had, as far as anyone in that house could tell, quietly fallen apart around them, and nobody had bothered to come back and mention it. 12 strangers, no Wi-Fi. And now, as far as they knew, no company running the experiment, no guaranteed prize waiting at the end, and nobody coming to let them out. Suddenly, Walter's clipboard didn't feel bureaucratic anymore. It felt like the only thing holding the house together. And naturally, that's exactly when it stopped working. The power struggle that followed was less Lord of the Flies and more a homeowners association fistfight. But it was no less vicious for it. Team Order wanted to keep everyone inside, honor the waiver, and wait out the full 30 days on principle alone. Team Chaos wanted someone to walk the 4 miles to the county road and flag down the first car they saw. Waiver be damned, prize be damned, because nobody had signed up to just quietly disappear. Mabel, sweet, unassuming Mabel, turned out to be the deciding vote in almost every single argument, and it slowly dawned on the group that she'd been controlling the pantry rations for 2 weeks without a single person noticing, deciding who ate first, who ate last, and who really wanted to stay on her good side. A 71-year-old grandmother had, without one laminated chart of her own, quietly become the most powerful person in the house. Nobody saw that coming, least of all Walter. They held one final vote: stay and wait it out, or send someone for help. It came down fittingly to the two people nobody expected: Ezra, the shed guy with the radio, and Brent, the man who'd been banished there in the first place. Ezra volunteered to walk the 4 miles alone, breaking the leave and it's over for everyone clause without a second thought, because, in his words, somebody's phone is worth a lot less than somebody's safety, and I'd know. I don't even own one. Brent walked with him. Guilt, maybe. Or maybe the first genuinely un-influencer thing he'd done in the entire house. They found the county road. They flagged down a passing truck. And they found out, all at once, the actual size of the mess they'd been living inside. Grid Life Media hadn't just paused production. It had folded entirely on day 11, the exact day Ezra first picked up that radio signal, after its funding collapsed overnight. But nobody had cut the cameras because the cameras weren't running through Grid Life's studio anymore. They were running through an automated backup feed straight to a public live stream platform, one nobody at the company remembered to shut off, quietly broadcasting 12 completely unaware strangers, 24 hours a day, to anyone in the world who stumbled onto the channel. And a lot of people had stumbled onto the channel. By the time Ezra and Brent flagged down that truck, the no Wi-Fi house had become the single most watched unscripted live stream on the internet, entirely without one single person inside it knowing they had an audience at all. There was no $250,000 prize. There never really had been. The money existed on paper, tied to a company that no longer did. What existed instead was an audience of 9 million strangers who'd watched Walter's clipboard tyranny, Deja's sunrise trials, Priya's vindicated camera theories, Corinne's courtroom reenactments, and Mabel's quiet pantry coup play out in real time, night after night, completely free, with better ratings than Grid Life's actual planned show ever would have gotten. The irony wasn't lost on anyone once someone finally sat them all down and explained it. 12 people spent 30 days locked away from every screen on Earth so that every screen on Earth could watch them instead. They walked into that house with no Wi-Fi and no idea what they'd actually signed up for. They walked out with no prize, no company, and no idea, until that very moment that they'd been the most watched thing on the internet the entire time.